Hey guys, back with I think this is tutorial number 6. Hopefully I haven't lost you by now, but last time I just want to recap. We talked about segues and how segues can contain variables. In this section, I want to actually shift gears a little bit and move over to our animal detail view controller. So our animal detail view controller is just a very generic. It's a very generic animal detail view controller, right? This we actually don't know. We can't assume whether this is a cat view controller or it's a dog view controller. What's going to happen is we're gonna determine what type of whether this is for a cat or whether it's a dog when it's created or when it's loaded for the first time. Okay, so uh, I'm going to introduce something called an enum. Okay, and enum is essentially just a new type. You don't really need to know too much about it. Let's just, for the sake of simplicity, just copy this code. We're going to call this enum animal type, and then we're going to give this two types, type dog and a type cat. Okay, and you need to make sure that you declare this. Okay, there we go. The warning went away. You make sure you declare this outside of this class. Okay, we're going to use this animal type throughout this view controller here. Okay, so now let's say that. Now let's give this animal. Sorry, give this animal detail view controller class an instance variable. Remember, we talked about instance variables are variables that can be accessed by the rest of the class. Essentially meaning anything in these squirrely brackets can access that instance variable. So we're going to call this variable, or say var, because it's going to change in the future, and we're going to call it var animal. Okay, and what we're going to say is that this animal by default is going to be equal to dog. So we're going to call animal type, which is this enum that we just described up here, dot dog. So that this is the syntax for essentially using this enum here. I know that's a little bit confusing, but just take a leap of faith with me here. And so now we have this animal variable, this instance variable, and we now know that this view controller is of type dog. It's going to default to type dog, and we'll get into how we can change that, or when that's going to change to a cat later. But yeah, so we have this enum here. We know it's a type dog, and what we're going to say is when this view controller, we'll just keep that there. When this view controller loads for the first time, we're going to print animal. Let's see if I can print animal. I don't know what that's actually going to print. Let's just run with it. Let's test this here. So we're going to print whatever animal that is, and the view did load. And hopefully, we're gonna print a dog when this view controller loads. So let's see. Yeah, dog. Great. So we know that this animal is type dog. It's printed dog. This dog segue. Sorry, I left this code in here, so that's why we're getting the dog segue as well. But great. So now we can say, okay, this is a type dog. Now when this view controller loads, we're going to print this this type dog. Now we need to figure out, okay, what if we click the cat button? Obviously we don't want this view controller to be of type view controller's animal to be of type cat, or we don't want it to be of type dog, we want it to be of type cat. So this is going to get a little hairy here, so just try to stick with me. we're going to introduce what's called if statements. So back in our main view controller here, in our segue class, we're going to call we're going to use this thing called an if statement, which it's hard to explain. Here we go. So we're going to say if, just follow along for a second, and then I'll explain it. If segue identifier, storyboard segue identifier, we stored it in here, is equal to dog segue, and then we want to put curly braces, then we're going to execute some code. Okay, so we're gonna say, let's just put a comment in here. We know we clicked on a dog. Okay, oops, dog. Now, or else if storyboard segue identifier is equal to cat segue, we're going to, we know we clicked on a cat. Okay, so what this means is this is the code that's going to execute when we click on dog, and this is going to be the code that executes when we clicked on cat. Okay, so let's actually just throw some print statements in there just to make things obvious. So let's print clicked on dog, and let's say this is clicked on cat. Great. Okay, so now when we click on dog segue, what's going to happen is we're going to say, okay, we're going to get the story or the segue identifier, which remember we called dog segue and cat segue, and we're going to check if that segue is equal. You got to use double equal sign, is equal to dog segue. If this is true, then we're going to print clicked on dog. Else, if else means, so now we're going to say if this first statement isn't true, now we're going to try the second statement. If storyboard segue identifier is equal to cat segue, then we're going to print clicked on cat. So let's go ahead and run this. Actually, let's get rid of our other print statements here. All right, so hopefully you're starting to see where this is going to go. So if we click on cat, you can say we clicked on cat. If we click on dog, let's see that we clicked on dog. Great. Okay, cool. So now that we know what we're clicking on here, let's figure out how we're going to make that animal view controller know, animal detail view controller know what type of animal it's supposed to display. So this is going to get a little confusing here, but what we're going to say is we're going to create a new variable called let new, or let's say detail view controller. So this detail view controller is going to be the view controller that we're about to see. So if we do segue dot destination, see how destination is of type UI view controller? That's because this is the view controller that we're going to segue into, right? So we're currently in the main view controller, but we're segueing, as you can see, into this animal detail view controller. So this is what we're in, and this is our destination, right? So if we go back here, this destination, we're setting detail view controller equal to this destination. Okay, now it's giving us a warning here. Oh, because it was never used. That's fine, we can ignore that for right now. But now what we need to say is, and just copy this code here because this is hard to explain, but now we're going to say this is a destination, but this destination is of type animal detail view controller. That's really important because we need to tell detail view controller that it's actually a custom type of view controller. It's not just your generic UI view controller, it's of type animal detail view controller. Okay, so now what we can say is detail view controller dot animal, because remember we had that variable back here called animal. This is a public variable, instance variable, which means that it's attached to this class. So we can say detail view controller. It's going to give you this little, question mark. Don't worry about that right now. Animal is equal to animal type. Remember, we declared the animal type. We can actually use that here. I know that's a little confusing, but Swift just works like that. And we can set it to whatever we want. So let's set it to cat. Now, the issue is we actually want to set this animal type inside the if statement. So let's copy and paste this into here. So now when we click on cat segue, we have detail view controllers animal is now equal to animal type cat. And in here, let's do it again, detail view controller dot animal. And let's set that animal to be animal type dog. Great. Okay. So now let's get rid of these print statements here. And let's see what's happening in our animal detail view controller. So let's go ahead and print animal. Let's see what animal looks like when this view controller is loaded. All right. There we go. So cat prints cat. Let's go back and let's click on dog. Dog. Look at that. So now we know this animal detail view controller, when it loads, already knows what type of animal it's going to be, right? I know that's a little confusing, but now we have an idea of what this animal is going to be anytime that it's loaded. So we can make sure that we customize it to fit whatever animal we originally clicked on. Great. We'll save the rest for this next video.